Hey, how's it going, everyone? So before I kind of move on with the video, I just kind of want to point out real quick that I don't know if you guys noticed. On my YouTube channel, I have an entire playlist simply called Joshy's Talk Videos, where it's basically like a compilation of me just talking about random stuff, whether it's tutorial related, sometimes video game related. And obviously, even like when this channel first started, I talked about like a lot of like really dumb, stupid things, which wasn't really like too relevant because obviously, I was starting up a new channel, so it's like I didn't want to do anything super serious until I started to kind of grow a little bit of an audience. But for some of you that may or may not know, this is not like my first trip, around YouTube. I actually used to have not just one but two YouTube channels. I used to have one called Josh the Genre Man, which was one that I pretty much abandoned because I didn't like the direction that it was kind of going in, and I tried to rebuild everything by creating a second channel called Josh the Random Guy, but that ended up falling apart pretty quickly too due to personal reasons. And if I remember correctly, I believed in my 400th subscriber video special, I think I probably did mention very briefly what happened, but honestly, it's one of those things where I kind of rather leave that behind. Only not because I don't want to talk about it. Maybe one day, depending on like how things are, maybe I will explain the full story. But for the most part, it's something that I rather kind of leave behind. So yeah, just to kind of let you guys ahead of, kind of give you guys a head, good idea what's going on with that. And you've probably also noticed I did change the names because I've been trying to maybe bring them back in a way, but I'm still not 100% sure how. Also keep that in mind as well. So the reason why I'm mentioning my whole playlist of the Joshy's Talk videos, it's because I want to add this video, and this is gonna make it, video, number 100 basically for that. So instead of me just talking about some sort of like stupid, crazy nonsense with like these toy companies or like covering some sort of issue when it comes to like collecting and all that, I thought I'd maybe try something a little bit more different and maybe talk a little bit about like me personally, like how I've started to kind of get into collecting, why I collect, how I kind of got into it to begin with. So this might be a little bit of a kind of personal video to a certain degree, maybe not super personal, but it's something to kind of uh, do something different. Because one thing I've come to realize when creating these channels, well, specifically this one, my permanent one. Hopefully, I'm not gonna go anywhere else, but still, uh, I've noticed I've never really properly introduced myself exactly, but obviously for good reason. When you start a YouTube channel, even if this is like your second or your third YouTube channel and all that, it's really hard to kind of do like a proper introduction like that because obviously when you first start your channel, because of how the YouTube algorithm sort of works, uh, obviously your first couple of videos are not going to get any sort of attraction. So you might as well make up some sort of weird, stupid crap as much as you want, just so you can at least gain, a little bit of like some views and all that, and then you start to kind of trickle your way up there. But for me, it was never really like about the views. I mean, maybe to an extent it is, because obviously if you work hard on a toy review, you want people to kind of recognize that a little bit because, it's something that I find fun to do, and in a certain way, in a certain degree, of course, and that's also part of why I like to collect and stuff like that. And that's like something that I've kind of been thinking about for quite a long time now, about maybe kind of getting into that sort of business. But I'll definitely get into that later on in this video. But I mostly want to talk a little bit about like who I am a little bit, and like why I like to collect, basically why I do what I do, and so what's the gist, right? So I guess I'll give you. Hopefully this doesn't turn out like a super long video, but just in case, be warned, so I don't bore you guys. Uh, anyway, so yeah. As you guys know, my name is Joshua. I don't think I've ever really mentioned my last name for the most part, and I'd rather keep that private, only because where I live, I don't really live in a pretty good place. I live in a pretty crappy neighborhood, and as time goes on, it's kind of gone maybe a little bit worse. I mean, you have your fair share, gunshots that you're kind of used to by now. There's prostitutes, walking around and stuff, and it's like it's not a very good environment, and obviously it doesn't really help with how like financially wise, it gets pretty tough sometimes. It's like my mother, she's kind of the only one that sort of works, and my dad, unfortunately, he's sick. He's not like sick or anything like that. It's not like something, it's not like he's like near death or anything. It's just that it's hard for him to kind of do a lot of things, and so obviously, And what doesn't help is that my mother, she works in another town, so you kind of got that to kind of think about a little bit. So yeah, things get pretty tough from time to time. And I'm in college right now, so and I have to think a little bit about like what am I gonna do in the future. So I guess besides that type of stuff, one thing that always at least kind of cheers me up to a certain degree is, of course, with my collection of stuff. And as you guys have noticed throughout the channel, I love Ninja Turtles. I've never what I've ever thought I would get into Marvel Legends, honestly. Although I did kind of got into it at a pretty bad time because, as we all know, the situation with like Hasbro and all that hasn't really disappeared. I mean, besides the whole like plastic free packaging ordeal, and then there's the price hikes, the quality of the figures, and it's like, yeah, I could go on, but it's like, I really don't want to talk about that. I just rather get to the point as to how why I got into this stuff to begin with. And then, of course, there's Godzilla, of course. I mean, why not? I mean, the reason why I love Godzilla so much, it's because it's an idea that comes off as a little bit stupid, but it kind of makes sense for what it is, and that I just look at it as art. And ultimately, that's kind of how I view action figures in a sense, is that at least for me personally, I don't know about everybody else, but I've always seen them as sort of a kind of like depiction of art in a way, because they're like models of like these characters that you see and within like culture. Damn, I had the word in my head. Not like pop culture, kind of, basically, right? Like in TV movies and all that. And think about it. It's like, yeah, I enjoyed the Godzilla movie, so why wouldn't you want to have the action figures, especially when they look very similar to like the characters and all that? So that's really great. And it shows like not just the professionalism like within these companies trying to at least sort of get the look of those type of characters, even if it's not always perfect. It's fine, it's always great. And then in the case of like Ninja Turtles and stuff, a lot of their toys have always come off as maybe a little bit goofy and all that, but that's sort of like what makes them very unique and kind of gives them that identity. Now, I've probably mentioned this maybe a couple of times throughout my channel, but I don't really talk about it as much. But as some of you may or may not know, uh, I'm an artist, kind of. Not really, but like I draw pretty much all the time, or at least when I'm not feeling like shit most of the time. And hold up. Uh, yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, yeah. So I hope to like maybe one day kind of get into like, how do I say it? I might as well say I don't know why I'm hesitating at this point. I really want to get into like sort of like the comic business and all that. I've already like created my own fair share of characters and stories and all that I would like to hopefully maybe one day share. That's been like a really huge passion of mine for a long time. And and I constantly draw. I come up with different ideas and all that. And even like right now, I don't know if I could take it out because I have a lot of it, but it's like I have like an entire drawer here. I have like you could think of anything. This isn't even like a quarter of what I got. I just gotta take out some of the stuff I have here just to give you guys an idea of what I do a little bit, but I'm not gonna show like too much of it. So like these are this is like the 900 page binder, and as you can see, this fold, and I have two more just like this. Obviously I've been drawing for a considerably long time. I've created my own stuff, and yeah, it's a lot, to say the least. It's like I don't even not sure if I should go through each and every one of them. And that's what I want to do, basically. So what does this have to do with action figures? I'll get to that in a little bit. Let me just clean up this mess. Um, and in case you're wondering, um, I'm not a lot of people who are subscribed to me know about my art and all that. Because on my personal Instagram account, I do post a lot of stuff on it. Kind of show to my pals. And I want to say out of all the subscribers I have, I want to say maybe like 4 or 5 of them actually know at least a little bit about the stories I make. And they've definitely seen a lot of my art, so they kind of understand what's going on. So how this all ties back into action figures, I mean, it's pretty simple, really. It's like when you enjoy like like whether it's you like the MCU, or if you like the Ninja Turtles cartoon, or you enjoy like the crazy bizarre nature of the Godzilla movies. The Godzilla movies I will always use as a perfect example, because the one thing that people never really understood about why those movies were great for their time was because everything was pretty much handmade. They had to make those buildings, they got to make the suits, and it's like as goofy and dumb as they looked, but it's like at least there's like a weird kind of effort to it, where it's like, yeah, kaiju's, like Ultraman and all that, they're much more better nowadays than how they were back in the day. But the thing is, it was like there was something where, excuse my language, but like they actually gave a shit about what they were making, even if it wasn't perfect. And that's something that you have to appreciate a lot, because you know that nowadays, with different interpretations of art and like how these companies kind of go about with how they make their stuff, it's not always like that. So I'd be lying if I didn't say that I took a lot of huge inspiration from a lot of this type of stuff, and that kind of conjured a little bit up to my stories. I mean, don't get me wrong, like my main characters and all that, they were mostly inspired by like video games and maybe a couple of toys. Like one of my main villains that I created, no joke, was actually inspired by an accessory that came with the Leonardo figure from the 2012 toy line, where he had like a little dagger, and I literally named the my bad guy daggers, which what I mean. You could kind of see that sort of correlation, because you start to think about that type of stuff, because if you're like me and you draw all the time, and it's like you come up with this stuff, and it's like you don't just make this stuff up out of thin air. And you can't think too hard about it either, because nothing's original for the most part. I mean, everything the every like how do I say it? I remember my professors from college. I remember he said it so perfectly, and I completely forgot what it was. It's almost like the best type of artist is kind of like the ones who steals, because the thing is, everybody has always taken stuff from each other all the time. He said it so perfectly, and it's like it's true what he says, because we all get inspiration from somewhere. So obviously I get a lot of my inspirations from toys, obviously. I mean, like, you look at the aesthetics of the figures, you see like how they look, and obviously looking at it from a visual point of view when you're watching these movies or TV shows, yeah, that shows you one interpretation. So another interpretation is through toys. So a perfect example, I did my toy hunt, and I found the Eastman and Large like Team NT 4 pack, and obviously I got Leonardo right here. I would show you the other ones, but I just want to bring out one just to show an example. And obviously this is supposed to be based off of one of the many few art styles based on the original comics or so. And obviously this design is not, I don't it's not based off of Eastman and Lars. I forgot the name of the artist who did these design for the figures, but you kind of get the point. It's so interesting how you're able to kind of bring the characters to life, and then put them into sort of action figure form, and you put them like in a sort of like a model of, it's like statues in a way. It's like having nice little movable statues in your home. You know what I mean? And obviously, the landscape of toys have changed a lot over the years, because action figures are no longer this thing that kids are into. Now it's something that adults are into, which people find pretty sad. And to an extent, it kind of is, because obviously it seems like that magic is lost, because a lot of young people nowadays just kind of care about this, and I'm very different than everybody else to that in that aspect, because I know that my dad, he always complains about how people are always on their phones all the time, and it's like I really hope that they don't like look at me like that either, because I'm kind of the opposite of that in a way. I don't really like to be involved so much with technology. I'm not really too much into that whole aspect, but I'm kind of forced into doing that, because that's how the world is now. Everything is about technology. I mean, that's where you get your coupons, that's where you get the news when you don't watch TV, that's where you get your entertainment, because TV is dying. It's not dying, but like they always cancel the best shows, you know what I mean? Remember Ash versus Evil Dead, that extremely like gory show about a guy who like has to stop these evil demons from the Necronomicon, and he tries his best to destroy it. And to this day, I am pissed off that the show ended on a freaking cliffhanger. The show only lasted 3 seasons. Stars canceled it because it was low on ratings, but that's literally like how every other show gets canceled, because not too many people view them. And it's like, I don't know. There's just something about it where it's like, in that aspect, I feel like that a lot of TV shows, and the biggest one who's guilty of that for sure is Nickelodeon when it comes to their animated catalog, where they'll release a show, it lasts like maybe a season or two, and then it gets canceled because it cannot keep up with like SpongeBob or something. You get the idea. Stuff like that don't get to flourish basically. But of course, the difference here is that I'm supposed to be talking about toys, not TV, but you get the point. You get inspirations from stuff like that, and I can't help but mention that, toys can also help kind of bring out your imagination in a way, and they're not just these little dumb playthings that you kind of mess around with. I mean, they might seem like it, but they're really not. I mean, another example, I mean, G.I. Joe, I mean, think about it, the whole army aesthetic and all that. I'd be lying if I didn't say that recently. I've been trying to come up with ideas for like soldiers, for my characters and all that. And obviously, this is like the biggest inspiration right here. Like, this is great. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about like flat out stealing and stuff like that. That'd be ridiculous. That's just plagiarism and a half. But the point that I'm trying to make though is that you gain ideas and inspiration from that. And that's a very important factor when it comes to both the toy world and the art world because I think that they both complement each other so well, but a lot of the time people don't really seem to notice that. So it's things like that is why I got into collecting to begin with because it kind of brings about a sort of like imagination. It kind of like opens your eyes to like this whole other thing, and you can move them around. So you can switch parts. I mean, if they include accessories at all, but you get the point. And remotely they're pretty nice to look at. Let's be honest here. It's like why would you want to stare at a wall all day? You know what I mean? Like yeah, you could fill it up with posters and yeah, if you're a gamer, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. I play games a lot. I've been thinking a lot about trying to bring my gameplays back and all that. I remember I was playing Doom for a little bit and I was making videos and kind of stopped, but I've been thinking about bringing those back because I really do want to do gaming on this at some point on this channel, but it is what it is. But the point that I'm trying to make is that action figures there's something about them where it's like you kind of get an idea to why you like them, but at the same time you kind of don't. But I look at it as through an artistic perspective too, because that's something that I feel like that a lot of people don't really notice about toys, and that's why I got into them to begin with. Because wow, it's cool that this guy got his own action figure, this character or whatever got his own action figure, and it's like cool. That's great. I've always liked that. I've always do. I don't know how. And it's a hobby that I definitely don't plan on stopping anytime soon. I don't really see why, you know. And I know there's the whole financials of it and all that, but as long as you kind of understand your ground, when it comes to that, I think you'll be fine. I don't think you should get worried in that aspect. It's not like the situation with that guy with his Funko Pops, where rumors were spreading that there was like this husband and wife getting a divorce because the husband kept spending like a lot of money on just Funko Pops. But like I say, a lot of sources say that that's fake, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. That's just what the internet says. But hey, who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it is what it is. People always go overboard when it comes to hobbies like that. And even I'll admit, me, I've gone a little bit overboard to a certain extent because, like my dad says, I'm running out of room, but can't really stop because that'd be kind of sad. It's like the last toy hunt that I made where it's like I saw all those amazing action figures and it's like I want all of them, but I know that I can't. So it is what it is. That's kind of the only bad part about being in this whole like toy hobby where understandably you're probably not going to get every single thing that you want and at a timely matter. You never know if you'll ever even see those action figures ever again. I mean, yeah, you resort to eBay or Amazon, but then again, that's a whole other situation in and of itself. But as long as you don't think about it too hard, then all I can say is that it's always nice to kind of wake up and it's like you see all this. You know what I mean? It's like why not? It opens up to everything. So that's what I like a lot because even throughout like my dark times, like my I mean I suffer from like a lot of anxiety. I also have some depression, but I can't really say for sure what kind of depression I have because I'm still currently trying to look into it in a way. It's like a pretty deep struggle for the most part, but action figures definitely do help me out a lot. It's kind of like a sort of a coping thing a little bit. Kind of it helps me out a lot. And it's very hard to kind of explain that without going into so much detail because that's like a whole other sort of animal in and of itself. And I don't want this video to go on for too long because we're gonna reach the 20-minute mark. So I guess this is kind of how I got into like action figures, and this is sort of like the, I guess, my perspective as to how I got into it. You know, I guess not. Now that I think about it, I'm trying to think of like what's a perfect title for this video, but I'll come up with something. So until then, thank you guys for kind of joining in, listening to me talk. You know, so I've been great. Uh, you know, got a couple of surprises here and there. There might be a new toy review somewhere this week. Until then, hope you guys, stay safe out there as always. Hope you guys are okay. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Expect another video soon, and I'll see you guys next time. So, peace out.